I have a potter's shop just inside the city walls of Jerusalem, not far from the Mount of Olives. It's not a grand shop, but it's a good location. My family has owned this shop for 3 generations. I've lived in Jerusalem all my life. Thousands of people pass my shop. I thought I'd seen everything, but this week held some surprises. Last Sunday began like any ordinary Sunday. I checked the clay in the settling basins, then set to work at my wheel. I was expecting a profitable week, since many visitors were coming to Jerusalem to celebrate the Jewish festival of Passover. I had just centered a lump of clay on the wheel when I heard people shouting. I have always been a curious sort, so I left my work to investigate. "Here he comes, riding that donkey," someone shouted. "Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord," someone else cried. A large crowd was gathering along the roadside. People began taking off their cloaks. They spread them on the road in front of the man on the little donkey. Others cut branches from the trees and spread them on the road. "Hosanna in the highest heaven," they shouted. I had never seen such excitement. "Who is this?" I asked the people near me. "This is the prophet Jesus from Nazareth in Galilee," someone answered. Now, I don't live under a rock. I have heard about this Jesus. Someone said he healed the sick and raised the dead. Others said he was a troublemaker. They said he broke the Jewish laws. I watched him ride by. He didn't look like much of a troublemaker to me. He was smiling at the people, especially the children. But I noticed something else. There was sadness in his smile. I shivered as I returned to my shop. I can't tell you why. I can only tell you that I did. Tuesday night, a neighbor told me Jesus had been teaching in the temple, and some of the religious leaders were angry about his teachings. One had to take my neighbor at his word. I'm not Jewish, so I had not been near the temple. I had been in my shop from sun up to sundown, selling my pottery. But as I watched my neighbor leave, I shivered. I can't tell you why. I can only tell you that I did. About noon yesterday, another neighbor told me the trouble was brewing. I didn't argue. I was afraid he was right. You could feel the tension in the air. Now, there is always tension when so many visitors are crowded into Jerusalem, but this year seemed different. As my neighbor left my shop, I shivered. I don't know why, I just did. I was exhausted last night, so I went to bed right after supper. I don't know how long I had been asleep, but a commotion in the street woke me up. Another crowd was coming, but this was not a joyful crowd. This was an angry crowd. Cautiously, I walked to the window. They had arrested the Jesus of Nazareth. This morning, my neighbor said that Jesus and his 12 disciples celebrated the Passover meal in a house not far from my shop. I wondered if Jesus had used some of my pottery at that meal. And for some strange reason, I shivered. I can't tell you why. I can only tell you that I did. My neighbor said Jesus and his disciples went to the Mount of Olives after the Passover meal. I knew that they must have passed my shop on their way. A chill ran down my back. My neighbor said Jesus asked his disciples to keep watch while he prayed in the Garden of Gethsemane. But according to my neighbor, the disciples fell asleep. They arrested Jesus in that garden. My neighbor said that the Jewish council held a late-night trial and found Jesus guilty of crimes against their religion. Right now, according to my neighbor, they were taking Jesus to be tried by Pilate, the Roman governor. They wanted Pilate to have Jesus killed. My curiosity was greater than my desire to make money. I closed my shop and went with my neighbor all the way across the city to Pilate's palace. I've seen lots of things in my life, but I was not prepared for that angry crowd. Pilate was very upset. Following his custom of releasing a Jewish prisoner during the Passover celebration, Pilate offered to release this Jesus of Nazareth, but the crowd told Pilate to release a prisoner named Jesus Barabbas instead. I watched as Pilate took some water, washed his hands, and said, "I am innocent of this man's blood." As I watched, I realized that I was shivering. My neighbor and I followed at a distance as they took Jesus away. The next time I saw him, he wore a crown of thorns and struggled to carry a heavy cross. I couldn't stop shaking. I am not a religious man, but I heard Sunday's shouts ringing in my mind. Hosanna to the Son of David! Blessed is the one who comes in the name of the Lord! Hosanna in the highest heaven! I saw a crucifixion several years ago, and I never wanted to see another. So I returned home and opened my shop for business. I centered a lump of clay on the wheel, took a deep breath, and ordered my hands to stop shaking. Now a great darkness has covered the city. I can hardly see the pot on my wheel, and there is a trembling that is not my own. The ground beneath my potter's wheel is shaking.